Hello, and welcome to today's Capital Investment Strategy podcast. We are going to start by talking about Ontario Trillium Foundation's investment strategy and covering the grant results that are related to the capital stream by action area. With the help of leaders in the public benefit sector and relying on the expertise of our staff and volunteers, the Ontario Trillium Foundation has identified the most important changes that should happen in Ontario over the next decade for communities to be more healthy and vibrant. Each element of our strategy builds on the next so that we can measure the impact of each investment. We are confident that over time, the cumulative impact of all of the investments we make will be reflected in positive changes to the Canadian Index of Well-being and will improve the quality of life for people in Ontario. To lead change that matters in communities, we have identified 6 action areas, and for each area, a set of priority outcomes that are backed by leading research and practice in the nonprofit sector. Every grant we make is an investment in only those activities that will achieve one of these priorities. Every grant recipient makes a commitment to achieve specific results with the support of our knowledgeable and experienced staff. Priority outcomes are what we aim to achieve as a result of our investments and are defined by 2 or 3 grant results. We will then be able to report on our progress towards achieving the priority outcomes in the medium term by rolling up the grant level results from across the province. Grant results are components that combined together achieve the priority outcome, and that can be measured through the use of specific indicators. Each grant recipient will report on specific indicators, we call those metrics, associated with the grant results so OTF can gather and review the grant level results across the foundation in the short term. I'm now going to briefly describe each action area and the grant results that are related to capital. So our investment priorities under the active people action area are improved infrastructure for both unstructured and structured activity. Unstructured means less organized, generally self-directed, often with limited or no rules, so things like jogging, riding a bike with friends or family, playing in the park, or hiking on a trail. Structured, on the other hand, is more formal, often with rules and specific objectives. So those would be things like sports training and competition, or organized exercise programs. The types of projects that we fund are field or facility repairs and upgrades, the repair or replacement of equipment, but only equipment that is necessary for you to participate. An example of something that we funded, a community center is updated to meet public health and safety requirements to increase access to the facility for physical activity programs. The second grant result is 2 priorities, more infrastructure, so things like new skate parks, trails, bike paths, playgrounds, playing fields, or increased accessibility, so things like having lights on a soccer field that allow additional programming hours, or retrofitting a rink to allow for persons with disabilities to play sledge hockey. An example of something that we funded, a project led by local youth to design and build a new skate park that will provide a clean, positive environment for youth and a safe place to ride away from traffic and pedestrians. The 2 grant results in the Connected People action area that support capital exclusive projects relate to increasing social connections and bringing diverse groups together to improve community life. We support the places and spaces for activities that build social connections and increase community collaboration. These activities include, but are not limited to, recreational activities, cultural activities, and other social interactions. Their fit with these grant results depends on how clearly the applicant demonstrates that the reason for the capital enhancement is to make the space or place available and appropriate for those activities. Naturally, this includes things like accessibility improvements, renovations that make a space more inclusive, things like universal washrooms, change rooms, audiovisual equipment, or flexible seating. The risk is that any and every renovation may be seen to fit under this action area, so we encourage applicants to ask themselves 5 different questions. 1. Identify the population that is socially isolated or the diverse groups that are involved. 2. Identify how their social isolation is being caused or maintained by a lack of access to this space. 3. Identify how their social connections will be increased by activities that are held or will be held in this space. 4. Clarify how the space or equipment is being used collaboratively to improve community life. And 5. Will the capital project make the space either more universally accessible or accessible for a particular population? In our Green People action area, we support capital projects that enable better planned and more sustainable ecosystem conservation and restoration. Emphasis under this grant result tends to be more on the sustainable side rather than the planning side. For example, capital investments that help ensure natural values are restored, conserved, and sustained. The key is that there needs to be some reasonable and logical connection between the capital project and its relation to the benefit of the habitat, ecosystem conservation, and/or the restoration. If it's completely unrelated to the ecosystem conservation, or so indirectly related that it's not logical, for example, wanting to replace a septic system in the building and relating it to the aquatic ecosystem conservation, then it doesn't fit. An example of something that we have funded, a capital investment in habitat restoration, such as water control structure and related items necessary to restore a wetland. The goal of our Inspired People Action Area is to move Ontarians from passive audiences to active participants in the creative process. Facilities play a large role in hosting the exchange between artistic producers and audiences. Spaces that are welcoming, accessible, technically sound, and aesthetically pleasing improve the quality of the production or program, while also engaging participants physically, intellectually, and emotionally. They create the conditions for the work to be well received and eliminate barriers to full and active participation. An example of something that we funded, the purchase of an accessible mobile event stage that enables performing arts groups to reach new audiences by delivering performances in unconventional spaces, particularly the outdoors. Promising Young People has 2 grant results for capital. 1, more children and youth have emotional and social strengths, and 2, more youth are meaningfully engaged in the community. There needs to be a clear link between the capital request for a particular activity or initiative and the grant result. For more children and youth have emotional and social strengths, an example that we have funded is to help children aged 6 to 12 years with mental health challenges improve social skills, self-esteem, and nutritional habits by engaging them in gardening activities. Horticultural therapy improves the well-being of children who face behavioral, emotional, and social difficulties. Through building, planting, and harvesting a garden in a cooperative venture, children with serious mental health issues will increase their resiliency and their coping abilities. So why is this aligned? They connected the capital request to the activity and then to the achievement of the grant result. They made a clear link between horticultural therapy, the need for the gardens and the gardening equipment, and increased social and emotional strengths of children and youth who face barriers. The second grant result, more youth are meaningfully engaged in the community. The types of initiatives that would fit our capital request that link the program or activity to the grant result, or the program or activity's purpose to the grant result. Prosperous People, the grant result here is focused on basic needs, which means that any capital request needs to align with the meaning of this result. Capital projects in this action area need to be for projects that are meeting a basic need, so things like food, shelter, clothing, essential personal items, water and sanitation, and health and wellness. An example of a project that we funded is the renovation of a local drop-in center to accommodate a range of immediate support services, such as addictions or housing. We know that applicants often struggle between basic needs and access to service grant results, but as long as the intent of the capital project is focused on meeting basic needs, it is acceptable. So we have a very short activity to see if any of this has made sense. We're going to read you a project description and then provide you with 3 possible grant results. We want you to choose one, and then at the end I'll let you know which one is the correct one. So our scenario is, which grant result best fits the following project description? Upgrade East End Community Studios performance capacity for broader community access. Is it A, arts, culture, and heritage have appropriate spaces? B, conservation and restoration efforts are better planned and more sustainable? Or C, infrastructure is accessible and available for physical activity? So congratulations to everyone who chose A, arts, culture, and heritage have appropriate spaces. That is the correct response since the project aims to improve a community studio's performance capacity for broader community access.